The quantum receiver aboard the TSS Perseverance chirped for the third time in as many minutes. Dr. Maya Chen frowned at her console, running the analysis again. The signal shouldn't exist, not out here in the galactic rim, and certainly not with this particular quantum signature. Captain Rhodes, she called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I think you need to see this. Captain Sarah Rhodes crossed the compact bridge in 4 short steps. The Perseverance was small by modern standards, barely 100 meters long. The research vessel's size had made it the butt of jokes at Space Command, but it had also made it perfect for its mission, exploring the mysterious quantum anomalies that had been appearing with increasing frequency along the galactic rim. What have you got, Dr. Chen? Maya pointed to the oscillating pattern on her screen. It's a quantum signal, but the signature is impossible. It's using quantum entanglement patterns we haven't even theorized yet. But that's not the strangest part. She pulled up a second display. The signal is old, really old. Rhodes leaned closer, her eyes widening as she processed the data. How old are we talking about? Based on the quantum decay rate, at least 800,000 years. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Humanity had only achieved faster-than-light travel 3 centuries ago. The idea of a quantum signal surviving from before humans had even evolved into their modern form was staggering. Can you trace it? Maya nodded, already plotting coordinates. It's coming from the Hercules void, that empty region of space we've been skirting for the past week. The signal's weak, but it's steady. Whatever's generating it has been doing so continuously for all this time. Rhodes straightened, her decision already made. Plot a course, but keep us at the edge of sensor range. If something's been out there broadcasting for 800 millennia, I want to know what it is before we get too close. The Perseverance altered course, its efficient engines hardly vibrating the deck as they pushed the small ship toward the source of the mysterious signal. The bridge crew worked in focused silence, each lost in their own thoughts about what they might find. Hours passed before Lieutenant Victor Torres, their sensor specialist, spotted something unusual. Captain, I'm detecting traces of artificial structures ahead. They're enormous. The main view screen activated, showing a vast field of debris. But these weren't natural asteroids or cosmic detritus. The fragments were clearly artificial. Massive pieces of what must once have been ships or stations, their surfaces scarred by weapons fire and time. It's a battlefield, Rhodes whispered. An ancient battlefield. As they pushed deeper into the debris field, the quantum signal grew stronger. Maya's instruments were picking up more detail now, and what they revealed was astonishing. The signal wasn't just a beacon. It was a message, encoded in a way that suggested whoever left it knew someone would eventually be advanced enough to detect and decode it. I'm beginning to decode portions of the data, Maya announced, her fingers flying over her console. It's a warning. And a history. She looked up, her face pale. Captain, according to this, we're not just looking at the aftermath of a battle. We're looking at the beginning of a war that's still being fought. Rhodes was about to respond when the ship's proximity alerts suddenly screamed to life. Torres's hands raced across his console. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Massive energy signatures. Nothing like I've ever seen before. The view screen filled with light as dozens of vessels materialized around them. They were beautiful and terrifying. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures. Technology so advanced it might as well have been magic. And they were huge, each one dwarfing the Perseverance thousands of times over. But something strange was happening. Despite their obvious power, despite their overwhelming presence, the massive ships seemed confused. Their sensor suites passed right over the Perseverance, as if it wasn't there. They can't see us, Maya breathed, understanding dawning in her eyes as she read more of the quantum message. The signal, it's not just a warning. It's instructions, the ancient civilization that left this message. They knew. They knew that after all this time, after all this technological advancement, the one thing that might survive might make a difference, would be something small, something that the great powers of the galaxy would never think to look for. Rhodes gripped the arms of her command chair, watching as the massive ships continued their blind search around them. Dr. Chen, download everything you can from that quantum signal. Lieutenant Torres, maintain our position and keep power usage minimal. Whatever we've stumbled into, whatever war we found ourselves in the middle of, I have a feeling the Perseverance is exactly where it needs to be. Sometimes the smallest ships cast the longest shadows. As the crew worked to unravel the ancient message, none of them could have known that they were about to become key players in a conflict that had shaped the galaxy for nearly 1,000,000 years. The Perseverance might have been small, but it was about to prove that in the right circumstances, size wasn't just irrelevant. It was an advantage. The massive ships hung in space like crystalline mountains, their hulls pulsing with colors that shouldn't exist in nature. From the bridge of the Perseverance, Captain Rhodes watched them with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They had been observing the alien vessels for 12 hours now, invisible to their sophisticated scanning systems. Maya hadn't left her station since they'd first detected the quantum signal. Her eyes were red-rimmed from staring at screens, but she couldn't look away. The ancient message was unfolding before her, revealing secrets that changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. "They're called the Luminous," she said, breaking the tense silence. "The species that left this message. They were one of the first spacefaring races in our galaxy, and they fought against something else." She paused, frowning at her display. "The translation is difficult, but the other species is referred to as the Void Collective." "Those ships out there?" Rhodes asked, gesturing at the screen. Maya shook her head. "No, these are intermediaries. The message calls them the Sentinels. They're autonomous vessels, created to fight a war their creators couldn't win directly." Lieutenant Torres spoke up from his station. "Captain, I've been analyzing their search patterns. They're systematic, but they have a blind spot. Their sensors seem optimized for detecting large energy signatures and mass concentrations. Anything below a certain threshold, they dismiss as background noise." Rhodes finished. "That's why they can't see us. We're too small to register as a threat. Or an opportunity," Maya added, her voice excited. "Captain, I've decoded more of the message. The Luminous, they weren't just leaving a warning. They were leaving instructions. They knew that eventually someone would develop quantum detection technology advanced enough to find this signal, but primitive enough that their ships would still be small." Rhodes leaned forward. "What kind of instructions?" "Coordinates, locations of other quantum beacons, each containing more pieces of the puzzle. And..." Maya's hands trembled slightly as she pulled up a new display. "Specifications for a device. Something the Luminous created but could never use because their technology was too advanced, too detectable." "I don't understand," Torres said. "How could being less advanced be an advantage?" "Because this device," Maya explained, "it's like a key. It can interface with both primitive and advanced technology, but it requires a delivery system that's virtually invisible to advanced sensors. A ship exactly like the Perseverance." Rhodes studied the specifications on the screen. The device wasn't particularly large or complex by their standards, but its potential implications were staggering. "Can we build it?" Maya nodded slowly. "With our fabrication units, yes. But Captain, using it would mean traveling deeper into contested space. These Sentinels, they're just the outer guard. According to the message, the real war is still being fought in the galaxy's core. A war that's lasted 800,000 years, Rhodes mused. There has to be more to it than simple conquest." "Dr. Chen, how long to fabricate this device?" 6 hours, maybe 7. "But Captain, there's something else you should know." Maya's expression was grave. "The message, it suggests that humanity's development wasn't entirely natural. The Luminous, they've been guiding us, subtly influencing our evolution and technological development, all to create a species that could do what they couldn't, approached this conflict from a completely different angle. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Their entire civilization might have been shaped for this moment, for this mission. "Well," Rhodes said finally, "let's not disappoint our ancestors. Begin fabrication of the device. Lieutenant Torres, plot a course through the Sentinel's blind spots. We're going to find out what's worth fighting for 800 millennia." As the Perseverance's fabricators hummed to life, the massive Sentinel ships continued their eternal patrol, never noticing the tiny vessel that slipped between their formations like a minnow through the legs of giants. In the vast darkness of space, the smallest shadow often held the greatest purpose. The next 12 hours tested every skill the crew possessed. Torres plotted courses that threaded through the Sentinel's sensor gaps like a needle through fabric. The ship's engineer, Jessica Patel, kept their energy emissions so low they were barely distinguishable from background radiation. And Maya worked tirelessly, decoding more of the quantum message as the device took shape in the fabrication bay. When the device was finally complete, it looked deceptively simple, a crystalline sphere no larger than a basketball, shot through with veins of what looked like liquid metal. But according to the luminous instructions, it was capable of interfacing with technology far beyond human understanding. "The next beacon is located in the Carina Nebula," Maya reported. "But Captain, that's deep in contested space. The message warns that the Void Collective maintains a strong presence there." Rhodes studied the tactical display, where dozens of Sentinel ships still searched futilely for whatever had triggered their alert protocols. The Perseverance had proven it could evade them, but this was just the beginning. They were about to venture into territory where ancient powers had waged war for longer than humans had walked upright. But they had advantages those powers couldn't comprehend: their size, their relative technological simplicity, and most importantly, their human ability to adapt and think creatively. Sometimes the greatest strength lay in being underestimated. "Plot the course," Rhodes ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do with a little guidance and a lot of determination." The Perseverance's engines powered up, barely a whisper in the vast silence of space. As they prepared to leave the graveyard of ancient battles behind, Rhodes couldn't help but wonder what other secrets awaited them in the depths of contested space. Whatever they found, one thing was certain: the smallest ship in Earth's fleet was about to make history on a galactic scale. The Carina Nebula stretched before them like a vast cosmic tapestry, its swirling clouds of gas and dust concealing countless stars, and somewhere within, their next objective. The Perseverance had traveled for 3 weeks to reach this point, slipping past dozens of Sentinel patrols along the way. "Energy signatures everywhere," Torres reported from his station. "The nebula's making it hard to get clear readings, but I'm detecting artificial structures throughout the region. Some of them are massive." Maya worked at her console, the crystalline device they'd fabricated pulsing softly beside her. "The quantum beacon is stronger here. It's different from the first one, more complex." She looked up at Rhodes. "Captain, I think this is more than just another message point. This feels like a destination." "Agreed," Rhodes said, studying the tactical display. "But we're not alone out here. Those energy signatures." "Multiple ships detected," Torres called out suddenly. "Different from the Sentinels. These are organic, almost alive." The main screen shifted to show what looked like massive creatures swimming through the nebula's cosmic clouds. Their bodies were dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, making them visible only by the way they blocked out the nebula's glow behind them. "The Void Collective," Maya whispered. "The message warned about them. They're not just ships, they're living vessels, evolved to exist in deep space. And they're hunting." Rhodes watched as the dark shapes moved through the nebula with disturbing grace. "What are they hunting for?" "According to the quantum data, they're searching for something the luminous hid here, something important enough to protect for 800,000 years. Maya's fingers flew over her console. "The beacon's leading us to there." She pointed to a particularly dense region of the nebula. But we'll have to get past them to reach it. Rhodes smiled grimly. Then it's fortunate they're looking for something big, isn't it? Lieutenant Torres, plot us a course through the densest part of the nebula. Engineer Patel, I want our power signature as close to zero as you can make it. The Perseverance crept forward, its small size now more advantageous than ever. The nebula's gas and dust provided perfect cover, and their minimal energy output was lost in the background radiation. They passed close enough to one of the void ships to see the strange patterns that rippled across its living hull. Fascinating, Maya murmured, scanning the creature vessel. They're silicon-based life forms. They evolved in the space between stars, never knowing planetary existence. No wonder they can't detect us. Their entire sensory system is designed to locate and track entities closer to their own scale. As they penetrated deeper into the nebula, the quantum signal grew stronger. Finally, they emerged into a relatively clear pocket of space and saw their destination, a structure that seemed to be made of light itself, floating serenely among the cosmic clouds. A luminous archive, Maya breathed, reading the quantum data. Not just a message, an entire repository of their knowledge and history. She held up the crystalline device. This isn't just a key. It's an interface designed to let a less advanced species access and understand their technology. Rhodes nodded. Take us in, but carefully. Those void ships are still out there. The Perseverance approached the glowing structure, which seemed to respond to their presence. A small opening appeared, perfectly sized for their ship. They designed everything about this, Maya realized. The size of the entrance, the power requirements, even the technological level needed to reach this point. They weren't just leaving messages, they were creating a path that only a species like us could follow. As they docked with the ancient archive, the crystalline device began to pulse more rapidly. Maya connected it to their systems, and suddenly the ship's computers came alive with new information, more than they could process in a lifetime. This is incredible, Maya said, her voice filled with awe. The archive. It's telling us the true history of the war. The Void Collective, they weren't always the hunters. They were refugees, fleeing from something even worse. The Luminous tried to help them, but something went wrong. A misunderstanding that turned into a conflict that's raged for millennia. Rhodes leaned forward. What were they fleeing from? Before Maya could answer, Torres's console lit up with warnings. Multiple void ships converging on our position. They've detected the archive's activation. Can they see us? Rhodes demanded. No, but they know something's accessing the archive. They're going to find us if we stay here. Rhodes looked at Maya. Do we have what we need? Maya nodded, disconnecting the crystal device. The archive has transmitted everything to our databases. But Captain, what we've learned changes everything. This war, it's all been based on a mistake. A tragedy of miscommunication that spiraled out of control for 800,000 years. Then let's make sure we live to do something about it. Rhodes said. Torres, find us a way out. It's time to show these ancient powers that sometimes the smallest voice can speak the loudest truth. As the Perseverance prepared to slip away from the archive, its computers now heavy with the weight of ancient secrets, the crew knew they had crossed a point of no return. They held knowledge that could potentially end a war that had shaped galactic history, if only they could survive long enough to use it. The Perseverance burst from the nebula's edge, riding a wave of stellar gases as dozens of void ships converged on the archive they'd left behind. In the ship's small conference room, Captain Rhodes stood before a holographic display of the data they'd recovered, her expression grim. Run it again, Dr. Chen, she ordered. I want to be absolutely certain. Maya nodded, activating the crystalline device. The hologram shifted, showing two distinct species, the luminescent, almost ethereal forms of the luminous, and the dark, flowing shapes of the Void Collective. The Void Collective evolved in the spaces between stars, Maya explained. They lived in harmony with the dark matter streams that flow through our galaxy. But then something changed. The hologram showed a massive disturbance in space, a wave of energy that damaged the dark matter streams. The Luminous, in their exploration of faster-than-light travel, accidentally disrupted the collective's habitat. And the Void Collective assumed it was an attack. Rhodes finished. Not exactly, Maya corrected. They tried to communicate, to understand what was happening. But the two species perceive reality so differently that every attempt at communication made things worse. The Luminous exist primarily in the visible spectrum, while the collective exists mainly in the dark matter spectrum. They literally couldn't see each other clearly. Engineer Patel spoke up from her seat. But what about the Sentinels? Why create automated warships? Because both sides eventually retreated to their own domains, Maya said. The Luminous to the visible universe, the collective to the dark matter streams. The Sentinels were created to fight a war neither side could directly participate in anymore. And now both original species might be gone, Torres added, leaving their automated armies to continue a war neither side wanted in the first place. Rhodes studied the hologram intently. The Luminous knew they needed a species that could bridge the gap, someone who could perceive and interact with both visible matter and dark matter. That's why they guided our evolution. Exactly, Maya confirmed. Humans are unique in our ability to theorize and interact with both spectrums. We can see the visible universe, but we can also detect and measure dark matter. We're literally in the middle of their perceptual ranges. A sudden alert from the bridge interrupted their discussion. The tactical officer's voice came through the comm. Captain, we've detected a massive energy surge. The void ships, they're gathering. They rushed to the bridge, where the main screen showed an extraordinary sight. Hundreds of void ships were converging, their dark forms weaving together into a massive lattice structure. It's a dark matter collector, Maya realized, reading the data from their sensors. They're trying to repair the damage to their original habitat. But she paled. The energy requirements are too high. If they proceed, they'll trigger a chain reaction in the nebula. Thousands of developing star systems will be destroyed. Rhodes gripped the arms of her command chair. Can we stop them? We have to communicate with them first, Maya said. The crystal device, it's not just an interface for the archive. It's a universal translator, designed to bridge the perceptual gap between species. But we'd need to get it close enough to their collective consciousness. How close? Maya swallowed hard. Inside their formation. Silence fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. They would have to pilot their tiny ship into the heart of an alien megastructure, carrying a message 800,000 years in the making. Plot the course, Rhodes ordered. Engineer Patel, divert all power to structural integrity and the device. We're going to thread this needle. The Perseverance moved forward, its small size allowing it to slip through gaps in the void ship's formation that larger vessels could never attempt. They penetrated deeper into the structure, where dark matter streams flowed like rivers through space. Energy levels critical, Torres reported. The dark matter concentration is off the charts. Now, Dr. Chen, Rhodes commanded. Activate the device. Maya pressed her hand to the crystal sphere, which began to pulse with an otherworldly light. The signal it emitted was unlike anything human technology had ever produced, a message encoded in both visible light and dark matter fluctuations. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The void ship's lattice structure froze, then began to shift. Patterns of energy rippled through the dark matter streams, forming into something that resembled language. They're responding, Maya whispered, watching the translations appear on her screen. They understand. They're seeing the truth for the first time in 800,000 years. The lattice structure began to dissolve as the void ships separated, their movements no longer threatening but almost graceful. The dark matter collector powered down, the potential catastrophe averted. They're asking for more, Maya said, her voice filled with wonder. They want to understand everything. About the Luminous, about us. They're curious. Rhodes smiled. Then let's satisfy that curiosity. It's time for all of us to step into the light and the darkness together. As the Perseverance held position between the realms of light and shadow, its crew realized they had accomplished something the greatest powers in the galaxy never could. Sometimes, the ability to end a war didn't require overwhelming force or advanced technology. Sometimes it just required being small enough to slip through the cracks and brave enough to carry a message of truth into the void. 3 months after their encounter in the Carina Nebula, the Perseverance hovered at the edge of Earth's solar system. The small ship's hull bore the marks of its incredible journey, but like its crew, it had survived to tell a tale that would reshape galactic history. Captain Rhodes stood on the bridge, watching as the impossible unfolded before them. A void ship, its dark form graceful against the starfield, moved in perfect synchronization with a reprogrammed sentinel. The ancient enemies were now working together, guided by human scientists who could perceive and interpret both their forms of existence. The integration teams are reporting success across all sectors. Maya reported, her console displaying updates from across the galaxy. The Void Collective is helping us restore the dark matter streams, and the repurposed sentinels are providing the energy regulation we need to prevent damage to normal space. And the archive data? Rhodes asked. Being decoded and shared with both sides. We've already learned more about dark matter manipulation in 3 months than humanity discovered in 3 centuries. Maya smiled. But that's not the most interesting part. She brought up a new display, showing a pattern of quantum signatures spreading across the galaxy. We're detecting new signals, not just from the luminous archives, but from other species who've been watching this war unfold for millennia. They're reaching out now that they see communication is possible. Torres spoke up from his station. The Void Collective's latest transmission is ready, Captain. They're requesting permission to establish a permanent diplomatic presence in the solar system. Rhodes nodded. Forward their request to Earth Command. Though after everything we've shown them, I doubt there will be any objections. The past 3 months had transformed humanity's understanding of their place in the cosmos. The revelation that Earth's species had been gently guided to develop the ability to perceive both normal and dark matter had initially caused controversy. But as humanity's unique role as mediators became clear, that controversy had turned to purpose. Message from the Diplomatic Corps, Torres announced. The first joint space station has been approved. It will be constructed at the boundary between normal and dark matter streams, designed to be accessible to all species. And they want the Perseverance's crew to oversee its construction. Maya added with a grin. Apparently, we've developed a reputation for handling delicate situations. Rhodes smiled, remembering their desperate gamble in the nebula. That moment when they'd slipped their tiny ship into the heart of the Void Collective's formation had changed everything. Not through force or superior technology, but through the simple act of delivering a message that had waited 800,000 years to be heard. New contact, Torres reported suddenly. Something's emerging from the quantum stream. The main screen activated, showing a point of light that seemed to exist somewhere between normal and dark matter. As they watched, it resolved into a form that combined the ethereal beauty of the luminous with the fluid grace of the Void Collective. It's a hybrid ship, Maya whispered, reading her instruments. The first successful collaboration between normal and dark matter engineering. They're calling it the Dawn Bridger. The hybrid vessel approached the Perseverance, its size dwarfing their small ship. But there was no threat in its approach, only an acknowledgement between pioneers. The quantum signal it transmitted was clear in both spectrums. The small ones showed us the way. Rhodes touched the crystalline device, now permanently installed on their bridge. Sometimes the greatest changes come from the smallest beginnings. Captain, Torres called out, his voice excited. Long-range sensors are detecting something massive approaching the galaxy. The quantum signature, it matches the luminous archives. Maya's hands flew over her console. Multiple signatures. They're coming back. Both the luminous and the ancient Void Collective. They'd been watching, waiting to see if their plan would work. Not their plan, Rhodes corrected. Their hope. They created the possibility, but it was human ingenuity that found the solution. Our ability to think differently, to see what others couldn't or wouldn't see. The bridge crew watched as more ships appeared, their forms representing civilizations they had never imagined existed. The galaxy was awakening, ancient species emerging from their hidden places, drawn by the news that an 800,000-year war had been ended by the smallest ship in humanity's fleet. "So," Rhodes said, settling into her command chair with a satisfied smile, "who's ready to make some more history?" The Perseverance's engines hummed to life, ready to carry its crew into whatever challenges awaited them. They had started their journey as explorers, become mediators, and emerged as pioneers of a new age of galactic cooperation. And they had done it all by proving that in the vast tapestry of space, sometimes the smallest thread could bind the entire piece together. As they moved to join the gathering of ships, their size no longer seemed like a limitation but a reminder that the power to change the galaxy didn't always come from being the biggest or the strongest. Sometimes it came from being small enough to slip through the cracks in ancient walls, brave enough to carry truth into darkness, and wise enough to know that the greatest victories often came not from fighting wars, but from ending them.